Admiral Zexthul stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Death's Edge, watching the blue-green planet slowly grow larger on the main screen. Earth looked so small and helpless from this distance. Around him, his officers moved between control stations, their scaled faces showing excitement and greed. After 6 months of travel, they had finally reached their target. The Kethvar hegemony had conquered 47 worlds in the past century. Each victory came easier than the last. Most species surrendered when they saw the size of the Kethvar fleet. Those who fought back learned quickly that resistance was pointless. The Kethvar had plasma cannons that could melt mountains, shields that could stop any weapon, and ships that moved faster than light itself. Earth would be no different. In fact, Earth looked like it might be the easiest conquest yet. Zexthul pulled up the intelligence reports on his personal screen. The humans of Earth still used chemical rockets to reach their own moon. Their most powerful weapons were simple nuclear bombs that could barely scratch a Kethvar cruiser's outer hull. Their fastest ships crawled through space using primitive ion drives. According to the spy probes, humans still fought wars with each other over patches of dirt and sources of water. Pathetic, muttered Commander Vector, Zexthul's second-in-command. He was reading the same reports. These creatures barely know how to leave their own planet. Why did High Command even bother sending a full fleet? A single destroyer could have handled this world. Zexthul smiled, showing rows of sharp teeth. Because Earth has something special, Commander. The spy probes detected unusual mineral deposits, rare metals that our engineers need for the new hyperspace engines. This backward little world is sitting on a treasure mine and they don't even know it. The bridge communications officer, a young female named Sekatara, looked up from her station. Admiral, we're receiving multiple signals from the planet's surface. The humans seem to be trying to communicate with us. Let them talk, Zexthul said. It will be amusing to hear them beg. Sekatara activated the main speakers. The bridge filled with crackling voices speaking in dozens of different human languages. Most of the words were panicked shouts and questions. The universal translator sorted through the chaos and picked out the most common phrases. Who are you? What do you want? Please don't hurt us. Zexthul laughed. Open a channel. Let me introduce myself to our new subjects. The communications system connected to every radio, television, and internet signal on Earth. Zexthul's image would now appear on every screen and speaker across the planet. He straightened his ceremonial armor and spoke in his most commanding voice. Humans of Earth, I am Admiral Zexthul of the Kethvar hegemony. Your world now belongs to us. We have traveled across the galaxy to claim your planet and its resources. Resistance is impossible. Surrender is your only option. He paused to let the words sink in. On his tactical display, he could see Kethvar ships spreading out around Earth's orbit. 300 vessels of war, each one more powerful than anything humans had ever built. You have one standard day to surrender your governments and military forces, Zexthul continued. Any attempt to fight will result in the complete destruction of your major cities. This is your only warning. The transmission ended. Zexthul expected immediate responses of panic and submission. Instead, something unexpected happened. The human communications went quiet for several minutes. Then a single voice came through the speakers, speaking calmly in clear, unaccented Standard Galactic. Admiral Zexthul, this is Director Sarah Chen of the United Nations Defense Force. We have received your message. However, we must respectfully decline your offer of conquest. Zexthul's smile faded. No species had ever declined conquest before. They usually begged for mercy or tried to negotiate. Explain yourself, human. We request 72 hours to prepare for cultural exchange, Chen continued in that same calm voice. During this time, we ask that you remain in your current positions and avoid approaching our planet. This will give both our peoples time to better understand each other. Commander Vector snorted with laughter. Cultural exchange? Admiral? These primitives think this is some kind of diplomatic meeting. Zexthul found the human response more puzzling than amusing. Something about the woman's tone bothered him. She spoke like someone who knew secrets that others did not. She showed no fear, no desperation, It was as if she expected this conversation to go differently than every other conquest in Kethavar history. "Very well," Zexthul said finally. "You have 72 hours. Use them to say goodbye to your families. When the time expires, resistance will be met with total annihilation." The communication ended, but Zexthul remained staring at the screen. Around him, his officers began intercepting human communications to learn more about Earth's defenses. What they found only made them more confident. Earth's military consisted of aircraft that could barely break the sound barrier, ground vehicles that burned fossil fuels, and soldiers who carried weapons that fired metal bullets. Their space presence was limited to a few small stations orbiting their planet and some research bases on their moon. Even their most advanced computers were less powerful than a Kethvar personal entertainment device. But as the hours passed, the communications officers began picking up strange transmissions between Earth's governments. The humans were using codes that the universal translator could not break, but some phrases came through clearly. They spoke of awakening protocols and deepest authorizations. Most puzzling of all, they kept mentioning something called Guardian, status, and ancient accords. "What do you think they mean?" asked Sektara during the second day of waiting. Zexthul shrugged. "Desperate people often create fantasy stories to comfort themselves. They probably have some old legends about mythical protectors who will save them in their darkest hour. Let them cling to their fairy tales." On the third day, something unexpected appeared on the long-range sensors. Energy signatures were coming from Earth's polar regions, specifically from deep beneath the ice sheets of the southern continent. The readings showed massive power sources buried kilometers below the surface. Zexthul called his science officer to the bridge. Morgak was an old Kethvar who had studied the technology of dozens of conquered worlds. If anyone could explain these readings, it would be him. "The energy patterns are unlike anything in our databases," Morgak reported after studying the data. "The power sources appear to be geometric in structure, possibly crystalline. They generate energy through unknown means." "Could it be some kind of human weapon?" Vector asked. Morgak shook his head. "Impossible. These signatures indicate technology far beyond human capabilities. The energy outputs are massive, but the humans show no signs of being able to access or control these power sources. Most likely, this is simple geothermal activity. Primitive worlds often have unstable planetary cores that generate random energy bursts." Zexthul nodded, satisfied with the explanation. Earth was just another backward world with some unusual geology. In a few hours, the 72-hour deadline would expire, and the real conquest would begin. But deep in his mind, a small voice whispered that something was not right. No species had ever asked for time to prepare for cultural exchange. No primitive world had ever shown energy signatures that their own scientists could not explain, and no human should have been able to speak perfect standard galactic without any contact with galactic civilization. Admiral Zexthul pushed these doubts aside. Tomorrow, Earth would fall, just like all the others. The Kethvar hegemony would claim another victory, and he would be remembered as the conqueror of the strangest world they had ever encountered. He had no idea how right that last thought would prove to be. The 72 hours passed like a countdown to execution. Admiral Zexthul stood ready on his bridge, watching the final minutes tick away on his chronometer. Around Earth's orbit, 300 Kethvar warships waited in perfect formation. Their weapons were charged, their shields were active, and their crews were eager for battle. When the deadline expired, Zexthul expected to see swarms of primitive human spacecraft rising from Earth's surface in a desperate final defense. Instead, something impossible appeared on his sensors. A single ship emerged from behind Earth's moon. It was sleek and silver, about half the size of a Kethvar cruiser. Its design was smooth and flowing like water frozen in motion. No visible weapons, no obvious shield generators, no exhaust ports or engine flames. It moved through space as silently as a ghost, but the most disturbing thing about the ship was how familiar it looked. Somewhere in the back of Zexthul's mind, ancient memories stirred. He had seen ships like this before in old texts and forgotten archives, ships that belonged to legends older than his species. Sensors report on the human vessel, Zexthul ordered. Sir, I'm getting impossible readings, reported the sensor officer. The ship appears to be constructed from materials not in our database. Its power source generates energy through unknown principles. I'm detecting technology that should not exist. Commander Vector laughed nervously. Unknown principles? It's just one ship against our entire fleet. What can these humans possibly do? Before Zexthul could answer, the communication system activated. A human woman appeared on the main screen. She was middle-aged, with graying hair and calm brown eyes that seemed to look right through him. She wore a simple blue uniform with strange symbols that hurt to look at directly. Admiral Zexthul, I am Captain Sarah Chen of the United Nations Defense Force vessel Prometheus. I need to speak with you immediately. Zexthul studied the human woman carefully. Like the director Chen from 3 days ago, she spoke perfect, standard galactic. More than that, she used formal diplomatic phrases that were thousands of years old, words that only the most ancient galactic civilizations would know. Speak your last words, human, Zexthul said. Then watch your world burn. Captain Chen's expression did not change. Admiral, you are currently trespassing in protected space, under ancient accords that were signed before your species learned to make fire. Earth is a designated sanctuary world, and humanity serves as guardians of the deep sleepers. I am ordering you to withdraw your fleet immediately. The bridge fell silent. Ancient accords were myths, stories told by old spacers in dark cantinas. The deep sleepers were legends from the galaxy's prehistory. Guardian species were fairy tales used to frighten children. No modern civilization believed in such things. You dare threaten us with children's stories? Zexthul roared. There are no ancient accords, there are no deep sleepers, and there are certainly no guardian species hiding on backward primitive worlds. Captain Chen sighed like a teacher dealing with a stubborn student. Admiral, I understand your skepticism. Most galactic civilizations have forgotten the old agreements, but I assure you the accords are very real, and humanity has been honored to serve as guardians for the past 50,000 years. She gestured to something off-screen, and new information appeared on Zexthul's tactical display. The energy, signatures from Earth's polar regions were growing stronger. Deep beneath the ice, massive structures were beginning to activate. Power flows that dwarfed the output of entire Keithvar battle fleets were stirring to life. What you're seeing, Chen continued, is just the beginning. Earth's guardian systems are waking up. The real protectors of this world have been sleeping for millions of years, but your aggressive actions have triggered automatic defense protocols. If you leave now, they might go back to sleep without fully awakening. Zexthul felt sweat running down his scaled back. The sensor readings from Earth were becoming more impossible by the minute. His science officer Morgak was frantically running analysis programs, trying to make sense of the data. These readings cannot be accurate, Morgak whispered. The power sources beneath Earth's surface are generating energy outputs equivalent to small stars. Nothing on a planet's surface should be capable of such energy production. Commander Vector slammed his fist on his console. Enough of this nonsense. Admiral, it's one ship and some underground power sources. Our fleet can handle anything these primitives throw at us. Without waiting for orders, Vector activated the weapons console and fired a warning shot at the human vessel. A bolt of plasma energy lanced across space, bright enough to be seen with the naked eye. It was a shot designed to disable, not destroy, meant to show the humans the futility of resistance. The plasma bolt never reached the Prometheus. Instead, it simply disappeared halfway to its target, as if it had never existed at all. Captain Chen shook her head sadly. That was a mistake, Commander Vector. Guardian protocols are now fully active. Suddenly, the Prometheus moved. Not like any ship Zexthul had ever seen before. It didn't accelerate gradually or turn in a wide arc. One moment, it was floating, peacefully in space, and the next moment it was directly in front of the Keithvar destroyer that had fired the warning shot. What happened next violated every law of physics that Zexthul knew. The human ship extended something that looked like a beam of pure light. The beam touched the Kethvar destroyer's hull, and the massive warship simply stopped. Its engines went silent, its weapons powered down, its lights went out. The ship was still intact, still in one piece, but it was completely dead in space. "Your crew is unharmed," Captain Chen reported calmly. "They're simply experiencing a temporary shutdown of all non-essential systems. Life support will continue, but everything else has been politely asked to stop working." The bridge erupted in chaos. Officers shouted reports and demands. Weapons officers tried to target the human ship and found their systems refusing to lock. On-shield operators discovered that their barriers flickered and failed whenever they tried to focus on the Prometheus. "How?" Zexthul whispered. Captain Chen heard him somehow, despite the fact that he had not transmitted the question. "Admiral, humanity learned long ago that the universe contains powers beyond conventional understanding. We were chosen to guard this world not because we're the strongest or the smartest, but because we understand that some things are bigger than any one species or civilization." She paused, and for a moment her calm expression showed something that might have been sadness. "Your species is young, Admiral. You've discovered faster-than-light travel and energy weapons, and you think that makes you masters of the galaxy. But you're like children playing with matches in a library full of ancient books. You don't understand what you're risking." On Zexthul's tactical display, more energy signatures were appearing all across Earth's surface, not just in the polar regions now, but beneath the oceans, under deserts, and in the deepest places of the planet. Each new signature represented power sources that dwarfed anything in the Kethvar arsenal. "What are those?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "Those," Captain Chen replied, "are the sleeping cities of the ones who came before, the architects who built the galaxy's first civilizations and then retreated into hibernation when their work was done. They chose Earth as one of their resting places because it was young and fertile, a good world for new life to grow." The human captain's image flickered, and for just a moment Zexthul thought he saw something else behind her. Something vast and ancient and utterly inhuman, looking at him with eyes older than his entire species. "They don't like to be disturbed," Captain Chen continued, "and they especially don't like it when someone threatens their chosen guardians. Admiral, I'm going to give you one more chance to withdraw your fleet peacefully, because if they wake up fully, this conversation becomes very different." Zexthul looked around his bridge. His officers stared back at him with fear in their eyes. The Kethvar hegemony had never faced anything like this before. They had conquered dozens of worlds, defeated hundreds of species, but they had never encountered guardians or sleeping architects or ships that could disable their most powerful warships with a touch of light. For the first time in his military career, Admiral Zexthul was beginning to understand that his fleet might not be the most powerful force in this star system. In fact, he was starting to suspect that his entire civilization might be nothing more than children playing with toys, while the real adults of the galaxy slept peacefully beneath the ice of a world they had dismissed as primitive and helpless. The thought terrified him more than any enemy he had ever faced. Admiral Zexthul stared at Captain Chen's image on his screen. The human woman waited patiently, as if she had all the time in the galaxy. Around the bridge, his officers looked to him for orders. The silence stretched until it became unbearable. Fear was not an emotion that Zexthul was familiar with. In 40 years of military service, he had faced plasma storms, asteroid fields, and the weapons of dozens of enemy species. But fear was exactly what he felt now, creeping up his spine like ice water. One of his destroyers was dead in space, disabled by technology that should not exist. Energy readings from Earth's surface showed power sources that violated known physics. And worst of all, a human captain was speaking to him like he was a misbehaving child who needed to be taught a lesson. "No," Zexthul said finally. His voice was quiet, but it carried across the silent bridge. "No more games, no more tricks, no more ancient myths and children's stories." He turned to his weapons officer. "Target the human ship with our main batteries. I want it vaporized." Commander Vector stepped forward. "Admiral, perhaps we should consider—" "I consider nothing," Zexthul roared. "We are the Kethvar hegemony. We have conquered 47 worlds. We do not retreat from primitives who hide behind legends and fairy tales. He activated the fleet-wide communication system. All ships, this is Admiral Zexthul. Target the planet Earth with planet cracker missiles. Full bombardment. I want that world broken into asteroids. Show these humans what happens when they mock the power of the hegemony. Across the Kethvar fleet, massive missiles began launching. From hidden bays. Planet crackers were the ultimate weapon of galactic warfare. Each missile carried enough kinetic energy to shatter continents and boil oceans. 50 of them could crack a world's crust and turn its surface into molten rock. The fleet launched 200. Captain Chen watched the missile barrage approach, her world with the same calm expression she had shown throughout their conversation. She did not call for help, did not activate any visible defenses, did not even move her ship out of the way. I'm sorry it came to this, she said quietly. They really don't like being woken up by violence. The planet crackers streaked through space, their massive engines pushing them to incredible speeds. In 30 seconds, they would impact Earth's surface and end this conversation forever. Zexthul smiled grimly, satisfied that his show of force would finally break the humans' mysterious confidence. Instead, something impossible happened. 20 seconds before impact, the missiles simply stopped existing. Not exploded, not deflected, not absorbed. They ceased to be, as if they had been erased from reality itself. One moment, 200 planet crackers were racing toward Earth, and the next moment, there was nothing but empty space. Sir, the sensor officer reported in a shaking voice, I'm detecting massive energy discharges from the planet's surface. Something is rising from beneath the ice in the southern polar region. On the main screen, Earth's image changed. The white ice covering the southern continent began to crack and split. Massive chunks of ice, some the size of mountains, broke away and fell into the ocean. But what emerged from beneath the ice was beyond anything Zexthul could have imagined. Structures rose from the frozen ground. Not built structures, but grown ones like coral or crystal formations that had been shaped by intelligent design. They were beautiful and terrible at the same time, with flowing curves that hurt to look at directly and surfaces that seemed to shift between different colors depending on the viewing angle. The largest structure was a spire that stretched 20 kilometers into the sky, wider at the base than most Kethvar cities. Its surface pulsed with bioluminescent patterns that created geometric designs of impossible complexity. Smaller spires surrounded it, connected by bridges that curved through the air without any visible support by the 7 moons, whispered Commander Vector. What are those things? Captain Chen's voice answered him, even though he had not transmitted the question. Those are the sleeping cities of the architects, the ones your species call the progenitors, the first builders, the deep sleepers. They were old when your sun was forming. They built the first civilizations in this galaxy, seeded the first worlds with life, and then retreated into hibernation to let their children grow and learn. More ice was cracking across Earth's surface. The sensor readings showed similar structures rising from beneath the ocean floors, from under Earth's great deserts, and from the deepest valleys between mountains. Each new city that emerged sent energy readings spiking off the scale. But the most terrifying part was not the cities themselves. It was what was moving inside them. Shapes emerged from the crystalline spires. They were massive, larger than Kethvar battleships, but they moved with fluid grace through the air. At first glance, they looked like sea creatures swimming through space instead of water. Their bodies were translucent, shot through with veins of light that pulsed in rhythm with the cities below. Those are individual architects, Captain Chen explained. They're waking up because your attack triggered their automatic defense systems. Normally, they sleep for millions of years at a time, dreaming the dreams that keep the galaxy's life in balance. But when someone threatens a sanctuary world or attacks their guardians, they respond. One of the massive beings turned its attention toward the Kethvar fleet. Zexthul found himself looking into eyes the size of starship bridges, eyes that held intelligence older than his entire species. The creature studied his fleet with the detached interest of a scientist examining bacteria under a microscope. Then, it acted. The being reached out with something that was not quite an arm, and not quite a tentacle. It touched empty space, and reality changed. 3 HFY cruisers simply stopped working. Their engines died, their weapons powered down, their life support systems failed. But the crews were not harmed. Instead, they found themselves floating in bubbles of breathable atmosphere, surrounded by impossible gardens that had somehow grown where metal corridors used to be. "Your crews are safe," Captain Chen assured them, "but their ships have been transformed into something more useful. The architects have a tendency to turn instruments of war into instruments of life." Another architect emerged from the ocean near what humans called Japan. This one was different from the first, with crystalline growths along its back that sang harmonious notes as it moved. It looked at a squadron of HFY fighters and gestured gently. The fighters did not stop working, but their weapons systems transformed. Instead of firing plasma bolts, they began spraying seeds and water, turning into farming equipment. A third architect rose from beneath the Sahara Desert. Its body was golden and warm, radiating heat that could be felt across space. It examined a HFY troop transport and decided that the soldiers inside needed to understand peace. Suddenly, every warrior in the transport found themselves experiencing the memories of every person they had ever harmed in battle. The emotional weight of their victims' pain overwhelmed them, and they collapsed weeping, finally understanding the true cost of violence. "Stop this," Zexthul screamed. "Stop this right now." Captain Chen looked at him with something that might have been pity. "Admiral, I can't stop them. No one can stop them when they decide to act. I tried to warn you. I gave you every chance to leave peacefully, but you chose violence against a sanctuary world, and that's something they take very personally." More architects were emerging from hidden cities across Earth's surface. Each one was different. Each one had its own approach to dealing with the HFY invasion. Some simply turned off ships with a thought. Others transformed weapons into tools for building and growing. One particularly artistic architect turned an entire destroyer into a massive sculpture that sang lullabies as it drifted through space. But the largest architect, the one that had emerged first from the Antarctic city, had not yet acted. It floated, in space above Earth's south pole, its massive form crackling with energy that made space itself ripple around it. When it finally spoke, its voice reached directly into the minds of every living being in the star system. "Young ones," it said, and its voice was like the sound of galaxies being born. "You have awakened us with violence in our sanctuary. This saddens us greatly. We had hoped that the newer species would learn wisdom before they learned to make war among the stars." Zexthul tried to answer but found that his voice would not work. The architect's presence filled his mind, showing him visions of the galaxy's true history. He saw civilizations rise and fall across millions of years. He saw worlds destroyed by war and worlds saved by wisdom. He saw the careful balance that the architects maintained, guiding younger species toward peace and growth. "You call yourselves conquerors," the great architect continued, "but you are children playing with dangerous toys. You have forgotten that every world you destroy diminishes the galaxy's potential for beauty and growth. You have forgotten that every species you enslave removes a unique voice from the cosmic song." The visions intensified. Zexthul saw his own species' homeworld as it had been before the HFY discovered space travel, a beautiful planet full of diverse life, ruined by centuries of warfare and strip mining to fuel their military expansion. He saw the species they had conquered, their cultures. The great architect floated above Earth like a living constellation, its massive form crackling with energy that made reality bend around it. Admiral Zexthul could feel its ancient mind touching his thoughts, showing him truths that his species had never imagined. Through the visions flooding his consciousness, Zexthul began to understand what the architects truly were. They were not conquerors or destroyers, despite their incredible power. They were gardeners on a galactic scale, beings who had spent billions of years nurturing life across the universe. The first vision showed him the galaxy, as it had been eons ago, when the architects were young and active. Empty worlds bloomed with life under their guidance. Primitive species learned to think and create and dream. Solar systems that had been cold and dead suddenly burst with the warmth of a billion different forms of life. We seeded the stars with possibility. The architect's voice echoed in his mind. Every world that holds life, every species that reaches for the sky, every civilization that learns to love instead of hate, all of these are our children, grown from seeds we planted in the cosmic soil. The second vision showed him why the architects had retreated into hibernation. As their garden grew, they realized that their active presence was preventing younger species from developing independence. Like parents who must eventually let their children make their own choices, the architects withdrew to hidden sanctuaries, sleeping until they were truly needed. We chose certain species to serve as guardians while we slept. The great being continued. Not the strongest species or the most aggressive or the most technologically advanced. We chose those who understood that true power comes from protecting life, not destroying it. The third vision focused on Earth specifically. Zexthul saw humanity's long history as guardians of the architect's sanctuary. For 50,000 years, humans had protected the sleeping cities, learning to use just enough architect technology to defend their world without becoming dependent on it. They had guided their own development carefully, always aware that they were caretakers of something far greater than themselves. Humans were chosen because they possessed a rare combination of creativity and compassion, the architect explained. They could be fierce when protecting others, but they never lost their capacity to nurture and heal. They understood that the greatest victories come not from defeating enemies, but from turning enemies into friends. Around Earth's orbit, more architects were emerging from their sleeping cities. Zexthul counted at least 20 of the massive beings, each one unique in form and purpose. Some looked like crystalline sea creatures swimming through space. Others resembled living mountains with surfaces that shifted between metal and organic matter. One appeared to be made entirely of light, its form constantly changing like a flame in zero gravity. But all of them shared the same ancient wisdom, the same gentle power that could reshape reality with a thought. The golden architect that had risen from the Sahara moved closer to Zexthul's flagship. Its presence was warm and comforting, like sunlight after a long winter. When it spoke, its voice carried the sound of wind through wheat fields and children's laughter. Admiral Zexthul, it said, we have examined your species' history. The HFY were once gardeners like humans, tending the forests and oceans of your homeworld. You created beautiful art and music. You cared for your sick and elderly. You celebrated the birth of every child as a gift to the universe. Zexthul felt tears running down his scaled cheeks as more memories filled his mind. These were not his own memories, but the genetic memories of his species, passed down through countless generations. He saw his ancestors as they had been before. War and conquest consumed their civilization. They had been gentle beings who found joy in simple things, the taste of fruit from trees they had planted, the sound of rainfall on leaves, the warmth of family gatherings. What happened to us, he whispered. The golden architect's expression grew sad. Fear happened, fear of scarcity, fear of other species, fear that the universe was too dangerous a place for gentle souls. Your people chose to become predators because they believed it was the only way to survive. But in becoming predators, they lost everything that made them worth preserving. Another architect, this one resembling a massive tree made of silver and crystal, extended branches that touched several HFY ships. The crews inside suddenly found their weapons transforming into musical instruments. Their armor became gardening tools. Their military manuals rewrote themselves into poetry and philosophical texts. We do not punish out of anger, the tree-like being explained. We correct out of love. Every being in the universe has the potential for growth and beauty. Even those who have forgotten how to nurture can remember if they are shown the right path. Captain Chen's voice cut through the cosmic conversation. Her small ship had moved closer to Zexthul's flagship, and her image appeared on his screen once again. But now he could see her clearly for the first time. She was not just a human military officer. She was something more, something that stood between the everyday world and the cosmic forces that shaped reality. Admiral, she said gently, the architects are offering your people a choice. It's the same choice they've offered to every species that has reached this point in their development. You can continue on your current path of conquest and destruction, but if you do, you'll find that the universe becomes increasingly hostile to your expansion. Guardian species will resist you, ancient defenses will activate, and eventually you'll discover that there's no place in the galaxy for civilizations built on violence. She paused, letting her words sink in. Around the bridge, Zexthul's officers listened in stunned silence. Many of them were crying, overwhelmed by the visions of what their species had once been and could be again. Or, Chen continued, you can choose to remember what your people were before fear consumed them. The architects are willing to help. You rebuild your civilization on principles of growth instead of conquest. They'll teach you to heal the damage you've done to your homeworld. They'll show you how to transform your military technology into tools for exploration and creation. They'll help you become gardeners again. The largest architect, the one that had emerged from Antarctica, moved closer to the Kethvar fleet. Its presence was overwhelming, like standing at the edge of an ocean and trying to comprehend its vastness. When it spoke, its voice carried the weight of billions of years of wisdom. Young Admiral, it said, we have watched your species for thousands of years, hoping you would find your way back to wisdom before it was too late. Some of your people already remember the old ways. Scientists who study life instead of destroying it. Artists who create beauty instead of weapons. Farmers who tend crops instead of commanding armies. Teachers who pass on knowledge instead of hatred. Zexthul thought of his own daughter, back on the Kethvar homeworld. She was a botanist, one of the few scientists working to restore their planet's damaged ecosystems. He had always been proud of her work, even though it seemed unimportant compared to military conquest. Now he realized that she was already walking the path the architects were offering. What would we have to do? He asked, his voice barely above a whisper. The great architect's expression softened, showing something that might have been a smile. Return to your homeworld. Speak to your leaders about what you have learned here. Help them understand that the galaxy is not a battlefield to be conquered, but a garden to be tended. Some will listen, and those who listen will be given the tools they need to begin healing. And those who don't listen? Those who choose to continue the path of conquest will find that the universe has become a much more dangerous place for them. Guardian species will rise to defend their worlds. Ancient defense systems will activate, and eventually, they will discover that a civilization built on violence cannot survive in a galaxy tended by gardeners. Around Earth, the architects began to withdraw back into their hidden cities. The crisis was over. The immediate threat to their sanctuary had been neutralized, and now it was time to return to their patient sleep. But before they departed, each one touched the minds of the Kethvar crews, leaving behind gifts of knowledge and understanding. Some received the secrets of ecological restoration, learning how to heal damaged worlds. Others gained knowledge of sustainable technology that could provide energy and resources without depleting planets. Many simply received memories of what peace felt like, experiences of joy and contentment that would help them remember what they were fighting to protect. Captain Chen's image remained on Zexthul's screen as the last of the architects disappeared beneath Earth's surface. The ice reformed over the Antarctic city, but Zexthul knew he would never forget what lay sleeping beneath it. The choice is yours. Now, Admiral, Chen said, humanity will be watching to see what path your species chooses. We hope it will be the path of wisdom, but we'll be ready either way. Her ship turned and headed back toward Earth, leaving the Kethvar fleet alone with their transformed vessels and their new understanding of the universe's true nature. For the first time in 40 years of military service, Admiral Zexthul had to figure out how to win a war by choosing not to fight it. Admiral Zexthul stood alone on the observation deck of his flagship, staring at Earth through the transparent aluminum windows. 3 days had passed since the architects had withdrawn back into their sleeping cities, but he could still feel their presence in his mind. The visions they had shared continued to play through his thoughts like echoes of a cosmic symphony. Behind him, the bridge hummed with quiet activity. His crew was working to understand the changes that had been made to their ships. Weapons systems had been transformed into terraforming equipment. Military computers now contained databases on ecological restoration and sustainable agriculture. Even their uniforms had changed, the harsh military gray replaced with colors that reminded them of growing things. Commander Vector approached carefully. Like all the crew, he had been deeply affected by his encounter with the architects. The aggressive confidence that had defined his personality for decades was gone, replaced by something that looked almost like wonder. "Admiral," he said quietly, "we've completed the analysis of our transformed systems. The technology we've been given is incredible. These terraforming tools could restore entire worlds in decades instead of centuries. The agricultural databases contain methods for growing food in any environment. And the medical equipment—" He paused, shaking his head in amazement. "Sir, we now have the ability to heal almost any disease or injury." Zexthul nodded without turning away from the window. "Have you contacted the other ships in the fleet?" "Yes, sir. All vessels report similar transformations. Captain Mortek of the Swift Vengeance says her ship can now purify entire oceans. Captain Zeltar reports that his troop transport has been converted into a mobile hospital that could treat the population of an entire planet. And what do they want to do with these new capabilities?" Vector was quiet for a long moment. "Sir, most of the captains are asking the same question you asked the architects. They want to know what we're supposed to do now. For generations, our only purpose has been conquest and expansion. Without war, we don't know who we're supposed to be." Zexthul finally turned to face his second-in-command. "Who do you think we're supposed to be, Vector?" The question seemed to surprise the commander. He thought carefully before answering. "I keep thinking about my home village, sir. Before I joined the military, I grew up on a farming settlement on Kethvar Prime's southern continent. My family raised grain and vegetables to feed the growing population. I was good at it, sir. I understood how to help things grow." His voice grew stronger as he continued. "I became a soldier because I thought it was more important than farming. Protecting the hegemony seemed more valuable than growing food, but now I realize that everything I've done as a warrior has been about taking life away from the galaxy. And everything I did as a farmer was about adding life to it." Zexthul smiled for the first time in days. "I think the architects would approve of that understanding." A soft chime indicated an incoming transmission. The communications officer announced that Captain Chen was requesting permission to come aboard. Zexthul granted the request, curious to hear what the human guardian had to say. Captain Chen materialized in the ship's transporter bay, using technology that the Kethavar were only beginning to understand. She was accompanied by two other humans, both wearing the same simple blue uniforms marked with symbols that seemed to shift and change when looked at directly. "Admiral Zexthul," Chen said as she entered the observation deck. "I wanted to speak with you before you made your final decision about returning to Kethvar space. You know what decision I'm considering?" Chen smiled. "Admiral, humanity has been watching galactic civilizations for 50,000 years. We've seen this moment many times before. A species reaches the point where they must choose between wisdom and destruction, between becoming gardeners or remaining predators. The choice is always difficult, but it's also always clear." She gestured toward the transformed ships of the Kethvar fleet. "Your vessels have been given new purpose, just as your people can be given new purpose. But the transformation won't be easy. When you return to your homeworld and tell your leaders what happened here, some will listen and some will refuse to believe. Some will want to learn from the architect's gifts, and others will see those gifts as threats to their power." Zexthul felt a chill of fear. What if the High Command orders me to return and destroy Earth? What if they decide that the architects are enemies to be eliminated? Then they'll discover what every other species has learned when they've made that choice. Chen replied calmly. The architects are not helpless sleeping giants. They're connected to guardian species across the galaxy. Humanity is just one of dozens of civilizations that have accepted the responsibility of protecting the architect's sanctuaries. She activated a small device that projected a three-dimensional map of the galaxy. Hundreds of star systems glowed, with soft light scattered across every spiral arm. Each of these lights represents a world protected by guardians, Chen explained. Some are defended by species that look like living crystals. Others are watched over by beings of pure energy. Still others are protected by creatures so ancient that they remember when the galaxy's first stars were born. All of them are connected, all of them share information, and all of them will respond if any architect sanctuary is threatened. The map zoomed in to show the local region of space around Earth. At least 20 star systems within a few hundred light years showed the telltale glow of guardian-protected worlds. Admiral, if the Kethvar hegemony chooses to continue its expansion through conquest, it will find itself facing not just humanity, but a network of guardian species that have been waiting patiently for younger civilizations to mature. Some of those guardians make humanity look primitive by comparison. Zexthul studied the map with growing understanding. We wouldn't just be fighting Earth. We'd be fighting the entire galaxy's hidden defense network. Exactly. But here's the thing, Admiral. You wouldn't just be fighting us. You'd be fighting the universe itself. The architects didn't just seed the galaxy with life and then disappear. They built the fundamental laws that govern how civilizations develop. Species that choose conquest over cooperation find that their technology begins to fail in subtle ways. Their worlds become less fertile. Their people become more prone to disease and conflict. The universe gently but firmly encourages destructive civilizations to either change or die out. Chen walked to the observation window and looked out at Earth. On the other hand, species that choose to become gardeners find that the universe supports their efforts. Their technology becomes more efficient and less harmful. Their worlds heal and flourish. Their people live longer, healthier, happier lives. The architects reward wisdom, Admiral. They always have. One of Chen's companions, a younger man with kind eyes, stepped forward. Admiral, my name is Dr. James Martinez. I'm a xenobiologist who specializes in helping newly contacted species understand their place in the galactic community. I'd like to share something with you. He activated another device that filled the air with holographic images. These showed Kethvar Prime as it existed now. A heavily industrialized world with polluted skies, dead oceans, and vast strip mines that scarred the surface like infected wounds. This is your homeworld today, Martinez said gently. But these images show what it could become. The hologram shifted, showing the same world transformed. The skies were clear and blue, the oceans teemed with life, and green forests covered the land where strip mines had once existed. Cities still existed, but they were integrated with the natural landscape, their buildings shaped like living things and powered by clean energy that worked in harmony with the planet's ecosystem. The terraforming technology in your ships could accomplish this transformation in 50 years, Martinez continued. The agricultural databases could feed your entire population using sustainable methods. The medical advances could extend Kethvar lifespans by centuries while eliminating most diseases. Zexthul felt tears running down his face as he looked at the vision of his homeworld reborn. This is really possible? It's not just possible, Chen said. It's inevitable if you choose the path of wisdom. Admiral, the architects have been gardening the galaxy for billions of years. They know exactly what each species needs to flourish. All they ask in return is that each species learns to tend the garden instead of destroying it. And if we choose this path, what would be expected of us? Chen smiled. The same thing that's expected of humanity. Protect life wherever you find it. Help younger species learn and grow. Defend the architects' sanctuaries if they're ever threatened. Share your knowledge freely with others who seek wisdom. Transform your military might into tools for healing and growth. She gestured toward the Kethvar fleet. Your ships could become exploration vessels, seeking out new forms of life and helping them develop. Your soldiers could become teachers and healers, spreading knowledge and medicine to worlds that need help. Your entire civilization could become a force for growth instead of destruction. Zexthul was quiet for a long time, thinking about everything he had learned. Finally, he looked up at Chen with determination in his eyes.